Welcome back. Many high school students play sports throughout high school, and like all sports, injuries are always a risk. Many local schools have athletic trainers at sporting events to ensure the athletes are treated on the spot for sports injuries. But as Adam Cellini just reported, budget cuts are threatening that. Athletic trainers being on the sidelines that treat an average 430 student athletes each year. It would be losing trainers, jeopardize the safety of our student athletes, and does saving money outweigh the risk of students not receiving the treatment that they need? Joining us for more is ABC 7's Adam Cellini, Charlie Kennedy, the chairman of the Manatee County School Board, and joining us by Skype is Eric Nason, the president of the Athletic Trainers Association of Florida. And Eric, let me start with you, because we reported that Hillsborough and Pasco County may be in this position right now. How many school districts across Florida are in similar positions?
Well, you know, recently we've mapped out Florida to find that there's 661 schools that have athletic training programs, and only 33.5% actually have full-time athletic trainers. So each county obviously has a separate budget line and certain financial responsibilities, and it's hard to say how many counties that it's going to affect. But anytime a budget line is focused on the athletic trainers, you're putting the risk and the health and the quality control around healthcare for our student athletes.
Can you explain that? I mean, I have a son who just graduated who played high school sports, and I know how important the trainers were there, but you know, you're not training kids to get stronger and so forth. This is, correct me if I'm wrong, you are almost the first responder should there be an injury at practice or during games.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, athletic trainers, or as we refer to us as ATs, we're, as Kevin was saying in the earlier segment, we're not personal trainers, that we are college educated, board certified, and we are licensed in the state of Florida under the Department of Health to provide athletic training, sports medicine services. We deal with everything from musculoskeletal injuries to the management and care of concussions to eating disorders to the psychological aspect of injury. And we do a lot of education, not only to the athletes, but to the coaching staff, to the parents, to make a continuum of healthcare knowledge and care on and off the field.
Charlie, Adam just showed how much the county now has to basically separate off for charter schools as part of the new state budget. So something's got to be cut somewhere. What are you doing?
Well, in Manatee County, we're fortunate. We're not in the same boat as some of the other surrounding counties because we have, we actually hired with a third-party outsider. We're now bringing athletic trainers in-house, so we're going to save some money that way. So, you know, we're not in the situation of Hillsborough where they were kind of getting their athletic trainers, you know, basically as, you know, as, I don't want to say student teachers, but student athletic trainers. So we're not in quite the bind that they are, but as has been mentioned multiple times, the priority here is student safety.
So, Adam, explain this for a moment. Hillsborough County, for instance, we're getting their athletic trainers from USF, but it was USF's part of the budget that was being cut.
Yeah, the USF specific program, I think their Sports Medicine Institute lost $2.4 million in state funding. And it was vetoed in the past session. And then the questions started flying around. You know, what's going to be the ripple effect of that? Will it be the high schools? And a lot of people continue to be uncertain about that. I don't know the details of their contract with the school district, and everybody has a different contract. You know, Sarasota County, I think, has the option to sort of reevaluate every year. Other counties sign on for 3 years. It just kind of, it's different for everyone. But the questions were absolutely flying around there because, you know, the first thought was that maybe the high schools would lose that resource.
And in that case, Charlie, Hillsborough County's schools are having other financial issues. You have a budget for athletic training, but you know, who do you contract with, and is that line item stable?
That line item is, well, in the case of Manatee County, it's, I don't know if I would call it stable. It's as Adam mentioned, it changes every year. That contract can come up for renewal every year, and historically it has been an outside third party. The concern that I've heard from our athletic trainers, I'm a former teacher and coach, so when this change was taking place, I heard from a couple of trainers in our county, and their concern is being spread too thin, because not only are we kind of changing the way we provide the service, it's the same people, it's the same trainers.
All right, well,
but are they going to get spread across schools?
Let's pause our conversation right there, and we'll pick up on that point when we come back. We're just going to get a check on our weather from Bob Harrigan, so stay with us. Athletic trainers help ensure the safety of high school athletes on the Suncoast, but with school budget cuts, this could mean that they will no longer be at all games treating players. And joining us to tackle the issues are ABC 7's Adam Cellini, Charlie Kennedy, the chairman of the Manatee County School Board, and Eric Nason, the president of the Athletic Trainers Association of Florida. And Charlie, you were telling me at the end of the first segment that your concern, given the budgetary pressures, is that athletic trainers will be stretched out and not be able to be in all places at all times.
Correct. From my conversations with two of our athletic trainers in Manatee County, they are going to be required to cover 2 school sites at the same time. Now, the school sites would be geographically close together, but you could see where there is the potential for a safety issue. As I said to Adam when we talked last week, this is going to be one of these kind of cost-cutting measures that we're going to have to keep an eye on and potentially come back and revisit.
Eric, what are the ramifications of that?
Well, I mean, it's a huge ramification. It's something that we don't want to put our athletes at risk. You know, a recent study said that 62% of our injuries to our student athletes are actually occurring during practices, not even during main competition. And so the concern is when we start cutting athletic trainers, we're probably just focusing on the competition itself for our primary coverage, and we're missing out on the 4 or 5 practices during the week. It's a big concern. We need to, as athletic trainers, and the National Athletic Trainers Association, along with the Athletic Trainers Association of Florida, the gold standard is to have 1 full-time athletic trainer being on site for all practices and all games. Now, a lot of schools have them teaching classes, and then stipend in order to stay and provide the athletic training services. But as your guests are saying, it's stringing out our athletic trainers too thin. It's putting a large demand on them. They're putting large hours, and they're putting themselves at risk just from missing out on athletes' injuries and having to deal with the responsibility of the academic side.
You know, people may not know this, but Adam Cellini was a star baseball player in high school and in college.
Not exactly true, but all right.
As an athlete, what did you need from the trainers? What did you get from these trainers?
Well, I mean, you know, I played baseball, and if you're a trainer, you may laugh at this. You know, we're very delicate. The baseball players, you always need the extreme care before every practice on your arm. Everything hurts, and if it hurts, you can't go do anything. But really, I mean, keeping your arm in shape was always the biggest thing as a baseball player. So you're in the training room every single day, with ice, heat, stem, stuff on your shoulder, your elbow, massages, anything you can do to sort of feel good that day and continue feeling good. And it's injury prevention. It's all prehab. It's you really are putting kind of money in the bank to make sure that you don't get injured on the long term. Not necessarily high school, but at the college level, you're playing 50 games, so you have to, you know, make that stretch.
And Charlie, you are also the cross country coach in Manatee.
In Manatee High School.
You know, so, and you pointed out to me that cross-country season actually starts a week before school. Right. We are dealing with really high temperatures where, you know, keeping kids hydrated is the name of the game at this point of the year. Are you concerned that there are enough, you know, athletic trainers available for all the schools in Manatee County and elsewhere?
Well, there's, you know, to Mr. Nason's point that, you know, the gold standard would be to have a trainer at every practice, every day. At a school site, you know, on practice days, you on your campus, you may have 3 or 4 sports practicing at the same time. Personally, at Manatee High, when I was a cross-country coach, we practiced off-site at GT Bray Park. And it was just me and the girls' coach, Rayanne. And, you know, we had some basic first aid training. But doing, like Adam's talking about, prehab, I think that's a good word for it, especially with runners who are doing 8 to 10 miles. We've got to do stretching, treatment of injuries that happened previously, and then you've got to get into, you know, making sure you have the hydration, you know, 20, 25 gallons of water. There's really, especially in the Florida heat, you know, cross country to me, having previously been a basketball coach and not really having seen that world, you know, being out there in 100-degree weather after school is there should be a trainer or a student trainer on site.
And Eric, we're going into high school football season in just a couple of weeks, so you're dealing with very large rosters. I would imagine that even in the best case scenario, athletic trainers county to county are stretched thin right now.
Well, they are. This is the busiest time of year. They're putting in 40, 60 plus hours a week, and that's not counting any academic responsibilities that they may have. As we're noting here, that the importance of injury or the athletic trainer on site is not just injury care on the site when we're in competition, but it's the care and prevention of an injury. It's preparing that athlete season long. And one big thing right now in the preseason element of training is heat illness and understanding to recognize these musculoskeletal injuries and injuries such as concussion, which is really big right now because it's going misdiagnosed, it's going undiagnosed. It's athletic trainers, if they're there for the practices, they can follow through a continuity of care with these athletes after possible sustained injuries in competition. Going into the football season, this is the pinnacle of athletic training. It's where we educate parents, educate coaches, educate the athletes, and really prepare them for the upcoming season. We build that relationship with the athlete, and that's so crucial.
Charlie, I'm wondering if this is going to get down to, as happens so often in terms of school issues at the public schools, that those counties that are in better financial shape are going to be able to offer more in terms of having athletic trainers on hand, and other counties that are having more budgetary problems, those kids are going to be put in a more difficult situation than other kids. Yeah,
and as I can only speak for I can't even speak for Manatee County. I can speak for myself. But as a policymaker and the budget watcher, student safety it is for Manatee County. It should be for other districts. The #1 priority. So if you're going to cut somewhere, and all of us have to make cuts this year based on House Bill 7069, if you have to make cuts, anything involving student safety is sacrosanct. That does not get touched.
Yeah. Adam, there are some school districts that what are the differences in terms of how school districts have gone out there and found athletic trainers and contracted with different companies?
It seems like a lot of districts do, the request for proposal route. You put out the RFP and you see what comes back, and I've never been involved in one of those, but I've certainly watched, several go through, and you're always looking for somebody to come back with the lowest number. I think that's a big part of it. So it is a number on a page at that point, and whenever it is, I'm sure it's easier to kind of make those cuts. Luckily Charlie has a sports background to an extent and understands what happens there. But I think just from reading what some superintendents around the state say about it, they compare it to the teachers. They almost put the two on the same level, like they have to choose between teachers and trainers. And I don't know if that's necessarily what has to happen, but I think that's a perspective that some superintendents, some educational leaders in the state have on this issue.
All right, we have to take another quick break, and we'll come back with final thoughts when we return. School budget cuts can impact the safety of student athletes, and our guests are joining us right now for final thoughts. So, Eric, for those of us who are watching this right now, and some people, their kids are out of the house and they really don't understand how critical it is for folks like yourself to be on the field, what would you tell them right now?
Well, they wouldn't allow you to drive a car in Florida without having insurance. And most schools in this county understand, or in this state understand, the risk factor of having a sports program without an athletic trainer on the sidelines. This is not just about employing an individual, but it's creating a culture for safety and health for these student athletes. It's hard if you're not in athletics, and it's hard if you don't have young student athletes participating of the value of this. But I guarantee you, here in the next few weeks, as football starts up, you're going to hear unfortunate stories of injuries that have occurred, and unfortunately, sometimes even deaths that occur on the sporting field because of injury or something that's been undiagnosed. And a big thing, as we mentioned, is heat illness. This is a priority. And I really put a lot of responsibilities on the school districts to do the best they can. And ATAF and the National Athletic Trainers Association stand behind these school districts in helping them with legislative efforts to raise money and to raise funds and to put out some legislative efforts that would support the demand for money.
Right, Eric, I don't want to cut you off there, but I want to give Charlie a last word here because it is a liability issue.
It is a liability issue, and we are unfortunately in an environment in Florida right now where Mr. Nason used a good word. What's your priority? And our priority is not in public education right now. And I think if people, if your viewers would look at not just the panacea of everything that covers education, but if you think about it as student safety, and then look at your elected officials and say, what is your priority? In a time when Florida is going through an economic recovery and boom, we are decreasing funding to public education. So
we will have to leave it there.
Fair enough.
Thank you all for joining us. But before we go, we want to share what some of our viewers are saying about Friday's show. President Trump went on a 17-day vacation starting on Friday. But before he left, he had an eventful week. Robert Mueller convened the federal grand jury to look into any ties between the Trump campaign and Russia. General Kelly took over as White House Chief of Staff, and Anthony Scaramucci left as White House Communications Director after just 11 days on the job. Here is what some of you are saying about that. Sandy says, quote, when is he going to focus on the country? He seems to be busy hiring and firing people. We have some serious problems going on in the world. Where's his focus? End quote. Kelly goes on to say he deserves time off as he has accomplished more in 6 months than any other president. Americans are sick and tired of the Russia story. If they want a good story, focus on the corruption of HRC. That's Hillary Clinton. Together we stand together and we will make America great again, end quote. And finally, Cindy says, quote, I just hope Trump doesn't take off his shirt for a photo op like on vacation like Putin did. Other than that, I wish Trump a good vacay. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions. They're on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. I want to thank our guests for being here tonight, Adam Cellini, Charlie Kennedy, the chairman of the Manatee County School Board, and Eric Nason, the president of the Athletic Trainers Association of Florida, all joining us tonight.